In every fighting game, you gotta be able to see how much health you have left. And in Smash's case, you gotta see how much percentage damage you've taken, which you can always do at the bottom of the screen thanks to the battle UI. In the first game from the Nintendo 64, the design was very basic. The character's series icon in the back, with the damage percentage in front of it, and the stock icons above it. In Melee, they did the exact same thing. In Brawl, they changed it, and this was the first time where you could see the character's artwork encased in a box. Smash for Wii U did the exact same thing. Well, to be fair, they moved the spike here to the bottom and pushed the series icon way to the right. Oh, and Smash 3DS had a long battle UI, also with the character artwork in a box. But in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, the character artwork is still there, but they pop out of the box, which is tilted this time. This is such a small detail, but I love it so much. Really, I can't tell you how much I love this little aesthetic detail. However, one day I was playing as my boy Shulk, and I noticed something. Why isn't his elbow sticking out? There are characters who do stick out a little bit there, so why not Shulk's elbow? It's so small. Ever since that, I started noticing other characters who could stick out more than they could, but just don't for some reason. Like Charizard's claw, Ivysaur's leaf, Mr. Game & Watch's hand, little things like that. So I hopped into Photoshop, placed every character's battle portrait as it appears in-game over the battle UI, then placed the full character artwork over that, which took a while to get perfectly for some characters, and then I started looking for little bits I could pop out, like this little bit of Pit's hair. And just like that, we got a slightly more expanded battle UI. Isn't it beautiful? Now, before we get into everyone else I changed, we gotta lay some ground rules. I'll keep perspective in mind. For instance, I won't make Ivysaur's hind leg pop out since that's behind him. A few characters are so small that their entire artwork could pop out. I naturally won't be doing that. I'm making sure that characters don't go out too far over the name tag area. I checked what the longest name tag possible is, and I'm pretty sure it's 10 capital W's. Piranha Plant goes out the furthest over this area, so I made sure nobody covered it more than he did. I'm only altering the portraits from their original placement and size, so I won't be moving the character's artwork or resizing it, just so I can make more stuff pop out. I'll only make stuff pop out if it comes from within the square. It would look kinda weird if I didn't look out for this. And lastly, I placed every single alt in the game on the battle UI and checked how far out they go, and I made sure I wouldn't go outside of this box. We wouldn't want to have this now, would we? There are 5 exceptions to this rule though, because I personally didn't think they're too extreme. I'll be sure to point these out. Now with all that said and done, let's finally get into it. This will go kinda quick since they're literally just images I altered, so I don't got too much to say about them all individually. Let's start with Mario, who's already one of the few characters who go out further than anyone else currently in the game. I made his fist and entire arm stick out. Considering the pose he's in, I'm surprised it's not like this normally. Next up is Yoshi, and I made his arm stick out too. Again, since this is the pose he's in, I'm surprised it's not like this normally. With Kirby, I made his front foot stick out, almost like he's stepping out of the portrait. I originally also made this small part of his body stick out, but I think that was too much and it honestly didn't look that good. I made Sheik's entire arm stick out. Like I said, some characters will go out pretty far, but it really doesn't matter that much if it's to the right, since the damage percentage will eventually overlap it anyways. Another example of which is young Link, whose cap I made stick out. This one isn't even that extreme. Speaking of extreme though, Mewtwo. Definitely one of the characters I made stick out the furthest. But the placement of the arm was too perfect for me not to include this one. Mr. Game & Watch. I already mentioned the hands, so there it is. With Game & Watch I really didn't have to pay attention to perspective at all, because, well, he's 2D, which is pretty nice. Also, I would have loved to make his other arm stick out too, but he's holding the flag there and that's probably a bit too much. I actually made 3 versions of Mennonite, because I couldn't decide whether I like any of them. I made a version with his left arm sticking out, which kinda messes with the perspective, a version with part of his sword sticking out, which doesn't mess with the perspective, but it just looks kinda weird. Also, the full sword would have been too much, and a version with both of these parts sticking out. I just really don't like how in the base game it's just his mask that sticks out a little bit, and it looks weird to me. But as you can see, there's really not much else they could have done differently. I bet you can't tell what I changed with Wario. That's right, the tiny helmet strap. Oh, and his entire arm too, I guess. Ivysaur I already mentioned, I made his front leaf stick out, but also his other front leg. I don't really think this messes with the perspective, since it still just looks like he's leaping out of the background. Charizard I mentioned too, just made his claw stick out, which was a tiny change anyway, so you know, why isn't it like this normally? I made Diddy Kong's whole arm and hand stick out, and also the tip of his tail, which I really like the look of for some reason. Now Lucas is an interesting case. I made his arm stick out, which wasn't really that much at all. But one thing that bugs me about Lucas's battle portrait is that you can see the smallest bit of Rope Snake's head in the corner. I've never really liked this, but it makes sense that you can see it. Still, I also made a version with the head gone because why not, I think it looks cleaner. Now Lucario is also a character where I bet you can see what I changed. Don't worry, I'll tell you. I made this tiny bit of his chest fur stick out. Yeah, it's kinda hard to see, but still. Oh, and his chest spike and left ear things too, which makes him go out super far, but whatever. Next up is Greninja. It's kinda super very weird to me that I made his ear thing in the back stick out, but not the one in the front. Wouldn't that have made more sense? Well, screw it, I just made both of them stick out. Yay! And now for the boy that inspired this whole video, Shulk and his goddamn elbow. I also made a second version where his necklace sticks out. It's just barely in the battle portrait and it doesn't stick out far at all, so this doesn't break any rules. I just thought it looked kind of weird, so that's why I made both versions. And lastly, Incineroar, whose whole cheek fur on his right I made stick out. Very cute. Now there are a few characters where the changes I made are so small that I wanted to show them off quickfire style, but first I gotta talk about two troublemakers that just bug me so much. Toon Link and King K. Rool. Let's talk about K. Rool first, since he's way less bad, but still annoying. Why is his crown cut off in his battle portrait? It doesn't make any sense to me, so I fixed it. Also, as a small side note, you know how Smash Ultimate has some special UIs for some characters? Wouldn't it have been funny if King K. Rool's crown disappeared from his battle portrait if he currently doesn't have it? I mean, Joker's mask disappears when he's got Arsene, so why not? It wouldn't be too useful, it would have just been funny. Anyways, on to Toon Link, who's just a piece of shit. Because why the hell did they crop his shield like this? Why? There's literally no reason for it to go out like this. Pretty weak shield if you ask me. They obviously couldn't have made the whole shield pop out, since it would have gone too far over the name tags, and because it messes with the perspective a lot. So this isn't a case of, oh man, I wish they made this stick out more. This is the only case of, I wish they made this stick out less. Ugh, okay, enough ranting. Have fun unseeing that next time you play as or against Toon Link. Now let's get into those characters where I made a tiny bit stick out, so I wanted to do these quickly. There are only 7 anyways. For Ness, I made his backpack straps stick out, which is just hilarious to me for some reason. Peach, Lucina, and Corrin are part of the I made a tiny tuft of hair stick out gang. I also made Zerasuit Samus's hair stick out, but to a slightly bigger extent. For Pichu, I made his tiny tail go over the border. Cute. And Ridley joins Shulk in the why don't their elbows stick out squad. If you look at his amiibo, you can clearly see that it's way behind him, so I guess it messes with the perspective, but you barely see that in his artwork anyways, so I think it's fine. Alright, let's end things off with some alternate costumes, which there really aren't many of again. But first, another troublemaker. Bayonetta! This one isn't really annoying, more than it is sad, I guess. In her Bayonetta 1 outfit, she is the only character that isn't a me that doesn't stick out. At all. Now you would have probably expected me to make her stick out, but the thing is, she really can't. There's nothing that they could have made stick out with her character artwork. At first I looked at her hair pillar thing on her head, but her gun is in front of it, so that won't work. So I'm sorry Bayonetta, you're forever cursed to have something in common with the Miis. Anyways, let's move on to Mario again, who, again, sticks out a lot. That top hat is just too glorious to leave out of the frame. This one kinda bugs me too. Not only is this all really ugly, don't at me, but the hat doesn't stick out and it's not even that big. Good thing I'm here to see what it would have looked like if it did. Yeah. Next up is actually 2 alts, because the changes I made to them is the same, since they have the same hairstyle and the hair is what I fixed. For these 2 female villagers, I made this tip of the hair stick out. Why they don't in the first place, I really don't know. And here's the Monado boy Shulk again, this time without clothes. And yet again I made his elbow stick out because of course. But also his necklace, which is a lot more reasonable this time around since it's a smaller necklace. Next up, two Koopalings, Iggy and Lemmy. They both already stick out like crazy, but that makes sense because they are crazy. I made Lemmy's foot stick out, which is just kind of a thing. But with Iggy I made his hand stick out, which I really like because it looks like he's grabbing onto the border of the square he's coming from, which is why I didn't make his thumb stick out as well. Next up is Advent Children Cloud. What I made stick out here is this tiny metal thingy here, but that's not what I want to talk about. What I want to talk about is the fact that Cloud is also a troublemaker. Because look, his shoulder pad thingy is cut off, again, for no reason. Why did they do that? Ugh, whatever, it'll just bug me for the rest of my life, I guess. Grumble, grumble. Last and probably least two, Isabelle. In her winter outfit, her sleeves reach just far enough to reach the border, yet the elbow doesn't stick out. Where have I heard that before? Oh well, that was all the characters I wanted to talk about. But before we leave, I got a little bonus for those who made it through to the end. We obviously recently got 2 new Smash characters announced, one of which has 4 costumes, ults, whatever. I made mock-ups of what their battle portraits might look like. I was actually able to recreate these 2 pretty well because we've actually already seen them. And I'm almost certain that Kazooie is gonna get screwed, just like the duck from Duck Hunt. Which kind of upsets me since the character is Banjo-Kazooie, not Banjo. Well, I guess we'll just have to wait and see what they do with them. Anyways, thanks for watching. I fully blame the reason that this video is a week late on E3. That kept me kind of busy to say the least. Also, goddamn, I'm excited to play as the hero. I have more of a nostalgic connection to Banjo and Kazooie, but the hero's moveset just looks way more interesting to me, I'm sorry. I just really hope you always have access to all their special moves and that they're not like special custom moves like with the Miis. Tell me who you're more excited for in the comments. Have a great day and or good night, goodbye.